Welcome to our session on how to reconnect naturally. So this is about helping children to touch joy and wonder through mindfulness in nature. It is my great pleasure to be joined by Caroline and Aleema. Caroline Woods is co-founder of Woodland Buddhas, along with her teaching colleague Georgia Noonan. She worked at the Dharma Primary School in England for over 20 years and is a long-time mindfulness practitioner and educator and a qualified forest school teacher. Woodland Buddhas was formed to provide opportunities for children of all ages to live, breathe, and play in nature and to learn to be naturally mindful. It helps them to feel able to take a break, to refresh, to reconnect all their senses to the beauty of the natural world, their world. And this is achieved through a combination of forest school activities and developing mindfulness skills. So Caroline, a warm welcome to you.
Thank you.
And Aleema Noormohamed strongly believes in the healing power of the outdoors. She is a life coach, a neurolinguistics programming master practitioner. She's a trainer. She's a mindfulness teacher. She's an edupreneur, educator, entrepreneur, and a nemophile, someone who is dedicated to reactivating the human spirit's connection to nature. She is co-founder of Nurture in Nature with Smriti Sharma. And this is an organization that helps the younger generation to unplug from technology and plug back into nature using mindfulness skills. This work is deeply intertwined with her belief that the heartbeat of nature and our own heartbeat are one and the same. Aleema, a warm welcome to you.
Thank you, Orla.
So maybe I'll begin, since both of your offerings center around nature, maybe I'll begin with why nature? Of all the different pathways that can support children, you both chose to support it by evoking this deep connection with nature. So Aleema, maybe I can come to you first to say, why nature?
Sure, thanks, Orla. I think for me, nature has been such a big part of my personal life. You know, I've grown up. I've grown up in nature. I used to go out camping. That love kind of festered into outdoor adventures, literally hiking, mountain climbing, jumping out of planes. Don't tell anyone. And all of that, actually, for me, it was so freeing. So, and I remember these memories very fondly. Literally almost every single memory of me as a child is connected to nature, and it brings a tickle in my heart. Then when I became a mindfulness teacher, it connected for me immediately, that mindfulness, nature, let's bring those together. And so, and especially right now when the pandemic hit and the kids were stuck indoors, the classrooms went indoor, online, and there was this disconnect for these kids. It was a no-brainer. We literally, me and my co-founder Smriti, we put this program together and we said, okay, let's go outside, let's take these kids outside. And we launched our first one. It was a huge success. We launched our second one. It was huge success. And now we're just on the pathway to bringing this out and getting the kids coming together. It's been absolutely amazing. So that's why nature.
That's wonderful. And Caroline, I know that Aleema is doing this in Nairobi in Kenya, and your offering is in a very different location. Yeah. So can we share a little about your work and why nature?
Yes, thanks, Orla. So yes, very different to Nairobi. We're in Sussex in the UK, and we go to a woodland area just outside Brighton. And why nature? Well, it's just an elemental nurturing force. It's just there for everybody. And yet, as Aleema said, over the last couple of years, it's opportunities for people to access nature have been curtailed. Mm-hmm. And children need that connection. They need to be free in their bodies, and they need to be outside. And nature just literally nurtures all their senses, their whole spirit. And it's very accessible. It's just there. if we access it. It's a very simple way of grounding our senses and being present. So it's there for us if we just go and grasp it, really. And so we wanted to provide those opportunities to help young people get out and just reconnect with the natural world and refine themselves, really.
And Caroline, what is it that you notice about how children respond to being in nature? Like, what kind of effect do you feel that it has when a child kind of goes and spends some time in nature?
The children we've been working with, that the opportunities for them to be out in nature, it just has such a radical, energizing effect on them. They are just so exuberant to be outside again, in the natural world, in the fresh air, amongst nature. It's I mean, we were talking before, and I gave you the example of this little boy who had been ricocheting around nurseries, hadn't settled, had lockdowns, struggled in lockdown. And when he came to us, he literally did that thing with the football t-shirt over the head. He just put the t-shirt over his head and he just ran through the woods going, nature! And he was just so happy to be back. He was so happy to be outside and in the natural world. And we lost him into the mud kitchen. He was there for a couple of hours cooking soups for everybody. He was making magical heart soup for people. And you can just see them being so creatively stimulated by being in the natural world. So it's just a eureka moment, I think, for many children, just to be outside. And there's a lot of running around, a lot of joyful exuberance, and also times of real connection through being in the moment and just having a sense of wonder when they notice some beautiful things as well. So it's an incredible balance.
Thank you.
There's so much to notice. There's so much to notice in nature, right? I mean, for us, I remember, what pops into my head is they come for the session. The first session they come in, they are a little bit stiff because, they're young kids. They don't know anybody. But by the second, not even by the second session, by the end of the session, you can see it's like a big weight that gets lifted off their shoulders, and they just let go of everything. And I remember one of the sessions that we had in the forest is we had these 3 girls who were strangers to each other. And by the third session, they were holding hands and they were singing out loud, so loud, freedom, not caring. I don't care if you judge me. I am here, I'm having fun, I'm connecting. And they were making up this one song. There was one chorus that they just made up over and over. It was refreshing to see them do this. And this is what, this is their response to nature. It's that freedom that they find. And I love it.
I think also they naturally collaborate almost without thinking. I mean, den building, for example, or any kind of activity using natural resources, there's a natural willingness to share that I've experienced, and a natural willingness to collaborate that just generates those connections that children aren't meant to play in isolation necessarily. They need to play with each other. And so being in nature allows them to form these connections, these social connections.
Yeah, beautiful. And Aleema, with your work, you highlight this action of unplugging in order to plug back into nature. And I feel there'd be many people watching who will go, how are children without their technology and devices and phone? And do they feel it as a punishment? What's your experience of what they do and how they respond to life without technology?
It's honestly, they don't even ask for it. They forget about it, because once they get in, first of all, it's so beautiful out there, right? We're surrounded by trees, and they notice the beauty because, they look around and they're like, oh, this is nice. This is different. And it relaxes them automatically. So one of the things that we do is we start off with the breathing. We just say, okay, let's just breathe. So they go into this breathing exercise, and it's literally 30 seconds to 1 minute. And after that, we share with them ideas of why we're here, what we're going to do today. And the best part about it is we bring in the practical aspect of it. You know, with kids, they love to play, they want to experiment. You don't put kids in nature and then just sit there and talk to them for an hour. You give them things to do, and that's the part that gets them going. And the way, you know, when Caroline mentioned earlier, is they just come together naturally. So one of the things that we ended up doing was, one of our sessions was to create a nature mandala. So you explain to them what a mandala is, and you set them free. And you have these little beings running around, you know, looking at leaves. Like there's a forest that we have here that's not too far from home. They come back with different colored leaves, like from green, yellow, brown, pink, and they create something with that. They look at the branches, they look at the little flowers, little stones, and it's incredible because they just come together, they collaborate. So in this space, who has time for technology when you're having so much fun?
I totally agree, and I think what is amazing is that we're on opposite sides of the world, and yet
Yes.
our sessions are very, very similar.
Yeah.
Because we're using natural resources and we're celebrating being in nature. So we too, you know, we have these groups of children that some bring their friends, some come again and again, some are new for the first time. And so they all come together. Some of them may not be quite sure about what to expect. And we sit and we go in and it's a beautiful woodland surrounding, and we have a parachute and a wood circle and the fire's going, and we sit together and we just relax and we breathe, and we may do, you know, a short guided meditation, but not just to imagine, you know, what can we smell, what can we feel, what can we hear.
Yes.
And then we talk about what we can do in the session and what we can do together and what we can go off and experiment with. And then it's extraordinary how they find a place for themselves and a place with each other as well. So we have some hammocks hanging up in the woods, and so quite often children will just be queuing up to just lie in the hammock and look at the trees and look at the clouds. It's, you know, they just want to do that. They haven't done that before.
Yeah.
And honestly, there's so many memories of children who you sort of wouldn't expect might want to do that. I mean, big boys, 10, 11-year-old boys, they just want to wrap themselves in a blanket and just look at the clouds for a bit because they can.
Oh,
Exactly.
And, you know, we have a mud kitchen. And so that's another collaborative point where loads of people come together and they make the most incredible dishes together with natural resources. And they, you know, they're garnishing it with, and they're working. And there's so many opportunities for them to just play and be joyful, really.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I want to bring up actually is what I've really noticed is, it's especially because we don't conduct it as a classroom, right? You sit there on your yoga mat or even on the ground, and a lot of them just like to lie down and listen and participate as they're laying down. And at the end of that, they're just like, wow, I haven't really laid down just like this without my phone or without anything. I've just laid down, and this is all I'm doing right now is laying down. And you can see that is something that is lacking in their lives with this continuous, you know, do. In this moment, they're just being, and they love it.
I think we've talked earlier about, you know, children being oversaturated by technology, and the amount of visual information and sort of cognitive stimulation they get is quite wiring for them. And when they come into nature, it is like, you know, a gentle calming hand on the back. It's just and breathe. You've got nothing else to do. You've got nowhere else to be. And, you know, we as adults respond to that and really enjoy that and find that incredibly nourishing. And there's, with children whose sensibilities are so much more sort of heightened and sensitive, they get it immediately. They get it very, very directly, very easily. It's just a case of being, just free. And they're there.
And I love that it has this kind of dual effect of, on one level, it is this deeply releasing, you know, calming hand on the back you're able to be. And then on this other side, you have this enlivening of all your senses, where there's this heightening that occurs. So I'm wondering, maybe you could share a little of a moment where you've kind of witnessed this, I don't know, a feeling of awe or the power of nature in the children that you work with.
But I don't know about you, Aleema, but I mean, with every session, we have some activities based around, you know, seasonal activities based around using natural resources. And you talk about, say, leaf mosaics. So we do a lot of that in the autumn. And in the spring, we do hapazomi leaf printing, or we do, you know, so we have creative activities, but a lot of it is just allowing them just to and go, you know. And then the kind of the subtlety, the skill comes into harness the amount of time they have to be free and engaging experiential activities like den building or mud building, or and then to draw them back into particular, you know, an idea for a practice like
Yes.
deep looking or deep listening. But nature has its own agenda as well. So you know, for example, on the way to something, we were just practicing a quiet mindful walk, but we were walking through, it was autumn, it had been raining, there were hedgerows and bushes, and there were all these spiders' webs, and they were covered in dew. They were like glistening, they were like jeweled, magical jeweled, you know, circles. And the look of awe and wonder when they noticed these, and then they noticed more and more, and it was just the most extraordinary thing, because they were, you know, we talked about doing a mindful walk, and so we were doing a mindful walk, but they were also bursting with energy because they saw something that was so beautiful that they really wanted to share with each other. And so, you know, I always love these sessions because it, in a way, it doesn't matter what you have in mind. The variables are the children and what they're going to do and what they want to do, but also nature, what nature's going to offer you and what's there for you to notice, you know, if you're present enough to notice it. So it's always a learning experience for us as practitioners. You go somewhere, you have an idea about what you're going to do, and you end up doing something completely different because of what they have noticed or what nature has provided for you. So it's, you know, it's enlivening for us as well, isn't it? To just go with it and see what's there.
I know it really is. And I know one of the things that we've ended up doing is we do that. We've done like a cloud meditation. So we do something, like you said, we have very similar programs. And so right at the end of our program, normally we go into a guided visualization or guided meditation. And I remember doing a cloud meditation where you had all the kids laying down, and this was an open, you know, keep your eyes open. And they were just looking at the clouds, listening to the sound of, you know, the meditator. And as they're looking, you see the clouds are, I mean, I was obviously doing it. So the clouds are passing, creating, and suddenly just after the meditation, they wake up and they're just like, wow, you know, I saw this in the cloud, and I saw myself in the cloud and behind the cloud. And it's almost like they were so mesmerized, they were right into it. And that just got, again, their creativity going. You know, they would see something and they would see something else forming, and they would be, you know, a dragon, or they would be like just an airplane or whatever it is. It was absolutely incredible just listening to them after this cloud meditation, because in that state, you're now activating this different area of your brain that normally doesn't get activated. And suddenly you start to see things you've never seen before, and your imagination just runs wild. And again, listening to them do that is just,
yeah. So, and have you noticed as well, because one of the wonderful things about offering these sessions for a whole range of people, a whole range of children who may not know each other, but because nature is so gentle, it's a gentle environment for them. There's no judgment. And so, you know, like with the cloud meditation, you could come up with anything that you notice that the truth for you, and it's accepted. There's no kind of peer, doesn't seem to be anyway, peer pressure or ridicule, or, you know, hearts are much more open to each other. And another thing you know, you talked about creativity. I mean, we do a lot of making up stories or creating stories, co-creating stories together using natural resources. So we can go for a little walk, and they go off and they collect things, and it can be a bit of moss. Okay, so
Yes.
bright green moss could be a pixie wig. A part of a fir cone could be a witch's claw. And they come back with these little treasures, and they've already got an idea what it is. And it's always magical, always magical. And then, they work together and they weave the most intricate, creative stories out using natural resources. It's unbelievable what they come up with. And again, it's free association, really creative, no judgment. They're completely open. So yes, I mean, opportunities like that are so precious, and the natural environment just generates those opportunities just naturally, doesn't it? It's just there for them.
This reminds me of one of the so we were going on a mindful walk, and we passed this tree trunk, and one of the kids is like, "Oh, that looks like an elephant's leg." And this other kid looks at it and says, "No, that's like a throne, and I can see, and then they actually go and sit in it."
Yeah.
So even that's interesting, because now look at the perspective. They're looking at the same thing, but they're both seeing completely different things. So this is the thing, right? This is the thing about nature. You drop all this other senses, but you heighten a whole set of other senses as well. I mean, there's another thing that's come up for me was just, again, I think in the last couple of weeks, this little girl comes to me with a praying mantis. I don't know how she found it. I'm not kidding. It was this small.
Oh.
This small, a praying mantis, those little bugs that camouflage themselves.
Yeah.
She had it in her hand and she's like, "Look what I found." And I was like,
yeah.
Huh, how did you find that?
Amazing. When we're present. Yeah. So I'm conscious that we could talk about this throughout the whole festival. So maybe I'm thinking of maybe a teacher or a group leader who's watching at the moment and thinking, well, maybe I don't have a beautiful forest to go to. Do you have any thoughts for them about where to start, like just where they are, if they have a classroom or a group, a youth group, but where they could start?
I think everybody's situation is going to be different, and not everyone is going to have access to woodland. And I think it's important not to feel overwhelmed and intimidated by that. And I feel that although Aleema and I are very lucky in our environments that we can offer this in a natural environment, but what I suppose what I want to say to people is, I think it's really important that you start from your own heart and you find your own joy, your own way of connecting with the natural world, because that will not only ground you and hopefully take away any anxiety about trying to do more with young people, but it is your way in. So whether it's walking on the downs or going for a night walk through the city and listening to the sounds, or just looking out of your window and watching the clouds, find a way that you connect with nature that brings you joy. And then that will allow you to hopefully be creative enough to find ways of working with young people. And I think if you haven't got access to a woodland area, there are ways that you can bring nature into the classroom to begin with, and then hopefully get out. So, I mean, Aleema, I know you've got ways of doing this. We were talking, so I'll stop talking and you talk now.
So it's actually good you brought that up, because I do work with a school as well. And what we encourage the teachers to do as well is to just to do like a visualization, a guided visualization in the class, where they close their eyes and you're being guided into a forest, or you're being guided on the beach. And in that sense, you're now going into nature in your mind. And with this practice, the effects of just visualizing and going into your mind, it's the same on your body as if you were there. you know, as if you were physically present in that natural space. So the work is happening, even if your eyes are closed and you're just visualizing, you're just hearing, maybe just activating the senses where you are, asking the kids to notice something that they haven't noticed before in terms of, you know, do you see something different? Or can you go outside and just listen to things, you know, listen to a sound that you've not heard before? Maybe these are some of the ways, you know, if a teacher doesn't have access to nature, they can do that in the classroom.
Oh, I love that.
Definitely training your listening, you know, just taking a moment to notice the nearest sound you can hear, and then try to train your ears to find the furthest sound.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you could make a telescope with your hands and look at something, or a frame, just have a cardboard cutout frame and just like a camera, just hold it somewhere and notice what's in that frame, and then reposition the frame and notice again. These are all ways of developing some skills for deep listening and deep looking, which, you know, when you do get into nature, are all there, and you just, you know, you're ready.
You're primed.
You're primed. Don't worry. Just don't worry. Just breathe. Just breathe and be happy, and it will all come there. It's all there for you.
Yeah.
However you can access it, it's there.
Beautiful. Thank you both so much. And I love, Aleema, what you shared about visualizations, because that's something we can do straight away. And I always think, you know, 95% of our anxiety comes from our imagination. So actually, a lot of the solution to anxiety, or the antidote, can also come from our imagination. So that's wonderful advice. So I want to encourage people can connect with your work. There's Woodland Buddhas on Instagram and woodlandbuddhas.com. And on Instagram, Aleema and Smriti have nurturenature.22 on their Instagram page. So please connect with them and allow this work to unfold and for us to inspire each other in terms of creative practices and this extraordinary, both very healing and really joyful practice that we can do together. Thank you both so much.